Ever notice those tiny creatures swimming around your tank? Your eyes are not playing tricks on you. Your aquarium is full of microscopic life, and these little guys can be both fascinating and occasionally problematic. Today, we're diving into the world of microfauna, those tiny creatures you barely notice but play a huge role in your tank's ecosystem. So, first of all, what are they? Microfauna are tiny aquatic organisms that naturally appear in your tank. They are some of the most resilient creatures in an aquarium, capable of surviving a wide range of conditions. They reproduce rapidly, often going through their entire life cycle in just a few days, which allows their population to grow and shrink depending on the environment. Their presence can be an indicator of water quality. Certain types flourish in stable, well-maintained tanks, while sudden blooms can sometimes signal excess waste or overfeeding. Many species are nearly transparent, making them easy to miss unless you're really looking for them. And despite their size, they play a huge role in the microscopic world of your tank, influencing everything from nutrient cycling to algae control. Microfauna don't just exist in the water column. Some burrow into the substrate, others cling to plant surfaces, and a few even attach themselves to hardscape or filter media. Now, and this is important, some of them can be a problem. So let's go over the ones that are good and you want in your tank, the ones that are neutral and you shouldn't mind them, and the ones that you need to get out of there. Some kinds of microfauna are actually a huge bonus to have. If your aquarium is home to tiny critters constantly on the move, you might already have a built-in live food culture without even trying. Many of these tiny organisms feed on algae, biofilm, and detritus, making them a natural part of your tank's cleanup crew. Some, like cyclops and other copepods, are especially valuable if you keep fry or small fish. They reproduce quickly, meaning your fish have a constant supply of fresh, nutritious snacks. Daphnia take it a step farther, not only helping control algae, but also acting as a self-sustaining live food source. Even astrocots, those little shelled creatures drifting around, are mostly harmless, nibbling on the leftover food and staying out of the way. If you keep shrimp or small fish, having microfauna in your tank is like having a never-ending buffet of tiny natural snacks. They are not just good for your fish, they are a sign that your aquarium is running like a real ecosystem, full of life at every level. Before we continue, if you guys are interested in aquarium plants that are grown completely underwater with CO2 and high lighting, extremely healthy plants shipped with real care and love, check out my shop. I have very interesting plants like Riccia, which can be used as a floating plant. You can make these cool looking trees or even as a carpet plant. And just look at those pearlings, aren't they just beautiful? If you guys want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description. Now we move on to the neutral ones, the microfauna that aren't exactly harmful but can still become a problem if their numbers get out of hand. Think of them like uninvited guests at a party. A few, no big deal. But if they start taking over, things get messy. Take detritus worms, for example. These thin, white worms usually stay hidden in the substrate, breaking down waste and helping with nutrient cycling. Totally harmless. But if you start seeing them wriggling up into the water column whenever you disturb the substrate, it's a sign you are overfeeding. Cut back on food, and their numbers will naturally decline. Then there's cyclops. We already talked about these guys as a great live food source, but in shrimp tanks, they are a little less welcome. They don't attack shrimp, but they do compete with baby shrimp for microscopic food, which can slow down shrimp colony growth. If you have a shrimp-only tank and notice cyclops population exploding, it might be worth adjusting feeding routines to make sure your shrimp aren't losing out. These microfauna won't crash your tank, and in balanced numbers, they are just part of the ecosystem. But when they start showing up everywhere, that's usually a sign to take a closer look at what's going on in your tank. Now, the creatures you don't want hanging around. Most microfauna are harmless, but these guys, they can cause real problems if you keep shrimp or fry. First up, planaria, flatworms with a distinctive triangular head. If you're breeding shrimp, these are bad news. They'll go after baby shrimp, steal eggs, and multiply fast if there's enough food around. The worst part is that if you try to remove them by hand and end up splitting them in half, each half just regenerates into a new one. Planaria traps can help, or you can use a no planaria treatment to wipe them out. Then there's Hydra, tiny green or white anemone-like creatures that attach to the glass, plants, or decorations. They might look harmless, but they are actually sneaky little predators. Using their tentacles, they paralyze baby shrimp and fry, turning them into an easy meal. If you only see a few, cutting back on feeding can slow their spread, but if they start popping up everywhere, you'll want to take stronger measures. Fenbendazole is a popular treatment that wipes them out without harming fish or plants. If you spot either of these in your tank, don't panic, just act fast. A small infestation is manageable, but if you let them take over, they'll make life miserable for your shrimp and fry. If you want more microfauna in your tank, especially as a live food source for fry, it's all about creating the right environment. Adding leaf litter or moss gives these tiny creatures plenty of surface to graze on and hide in, letting their population grow naturally. A stable, mature tank is also key. Copepods, Daphnia, and other beneficial microfauna thrive in well-balanced aquariums, where water parameters stay consistent. But what if you have too many? Most microfauna population boom when there's excess food, so cutting back on overfeeding is the first step. Pests like planaria and detritus worm thrive on uneaten food and waste, so reducing how much you feed your fish can naturally bring their numbers down. Adding microfauna eating fish like bettas, small tetras, or gouramis also helps keep populations in check, since these fish will happily snack on anything small enough to fit in their mouth. And if detritus worms are wriggling up from the substrate, gravel vacuuming during water changes can physically remove them before they get out of hand. At the end of the day, most microfauna show up due to natural process. In a well-maintained tank, they are just part of the ecosystem. Whether they are a helpful addition or an unwanted guest depends entirely on how your tank is set up and what you're keeping. Microfauna are the unseen workers of the aquarium world. Some are helpful, some are neutral, and a few are unwelcome. Knowing what's in your tank helps you keep things balanced. So next time you spot tiny swimmers, take a closer look. You might have a whole ecosystem in there.